All right, so here's the deal. What we're going to be going into is essentially what the commissioner just stated on a live news station. And some of the information is frankly super ultra scary. And one of the things I want to go through with you is exactly what he's getting at. He hits a lot of really good topics, but we're going to be giving commentary for a lot of those. Let's not waste any time. This video is going to be about what the president of the SSA, known as Commissioner Martin O'Malley, put in by Biden, replaced Commissioner Kijakazi, has to say specifically about Social Security benefits, the state of the Social Security Administration. Let's get right into it.
Administration joins me now in the WORT studio. Thank you for taking the time to come down to the studio today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for being interested in Social Security.
All right. You're here in Madison for a panel discussion this evening titled Social Security Past, Present, and Future. What's your goal for tonight's panel?
My goal every day is greater understanding among the American public of this most important act of compassion and caring that a freed people have ever put into law. Social Security lifts so many people out of poverty, and it's not just the elderly, Janine, it's also children. I mean, there are so many kids that are either survivor beneficiaries or children that are on supplemental security income. So I think the more we understand the program, I think the better that is for our whole country and trust.
Okay, so just going into basically the main thing here is that he's doing a lot of PR stuff. He's doing PR stuff right now because he's trying to get Social Security benefits out there because one day he might actually be a presidential candidate again. And as a result of that, he's using this as a stepping platform, which is awesome because we never get presidential candidates from the SSA, which means we never get presidential candidates that care about the program that costs America the most money, more than the military, more than all of the overseas stuff we do. So the bottom line is this is true. This is good. He's talking about how basically kids, they use auxiliary benefits, SSI benefits, all these different types of benefits. So it keeps a lot of people out of poverty. It pays for a lot of Americans. And one might say it is the most give back program that we have to some degree, although some others would say the investments are terrible and they don't really get what they should out of it, out of the money that they've put into it.
There's a lot of talk around the globe about the disintegration of trust in democracies. But it's also true that the more we make our programs work and the better we make them work, the more we can lift up that trust and restore that trust. So in Social Security right now, we're facing two big crises. One that you hear about all the time is the so-called bankruptcy. The truth is Social Security can't go bankrupt in any of the sense of the word that you and I understand it because it's a pay-as-you-go program. But we are facing in 2035 what would be a 17% reduction in benefits.
Now, look, that 17% wavers all over the place. That's the low ball. Realistically, 22, 24, even 27% is more realistic in this particular situation. And they say 2035, but it's probably going to be 2033 or likely sooner because they don't calculate the fertility rate to continue to dropping at the rate that it already is. Men and women are just not having kids to afford Social Security benefits going forward because they're not making babies that become workers that pay FICA tax. And a lot of that is, men are expecting women to be like they were in the past. Women are going full feminism mode. And, as a result of that, the main nugget of who pays for all of these programs, which is that white middle class, the women are voting mostly, white females are voting mostly for the Democrat side. White males are mostly voting for the Republican side. White males want to go back to the way things were. White females want to go forward. And there's this huge divide creating, which ultimately really hurts. Doesn't kill, but it hurts the hell out of Social Security benefits. The other thing that he mentions real quick that I want to go through is that he says it can never truly go bankrupt. That is true. It can just keep paying people less and less and less and less because it's not a program that ever totally runs out. The trust funds will run out, yes, but people pay for it every single year. So it'll never truly become bankrupt until the people vote to change the system that it is.
Congress doesn't act, and I think they will. But the other crisis that's already here is the crisis in customer service. I just was visiting the Madison field office. The Madison field office, once upon a time, not so long ago, had 35 employees. Now they're down to 17. And I sat with people who were there for the benefits they had paid for, waiting for an hour and a half, just to get to see somebody that could help them navigate this program, which is elegantly simple at a high level, but can be complex when it comes down to making sure you get the right amount to the right person at the right time.
Okay, so just to go into that, the field office is literally half as many people as they used to have. Now, I know what you're thinking. the SSA has a duty to staff the local field offices, the places where you go ahead and find out something about your benefits, talk with somebody, interact with a field office representative. They have a duty to make sure that there's enough people there to interact with you. The problem is that there's not enough people who actually want to work for the Social Security Administration. The pay ain't great, the benefits ain't great, and bottom line is it's a lot to learn, and the government is constantly using tracking softwares and probability analysis to see whether or not you're really working that hard. So the bottom line here is this: they're down to half of where they were. They were in trouble before with how many they had. Now it's serious issues. So what you'll probably see over the next year or so is a rotational schedule where they'll be closed for certain days and open for certain days. So it won't be a Monday through Friday. It'll be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or maybe a Tuesday, Thursday gig, depending on how many people they continue to lose throughout this process. And what's interesting about this is I don't know if he told anybody when he went into that field office that basically he was there. He might have just gone in there and sat with people and talked with people and not told any of the field office reps that he was actually there, which would be incredibly interesting because it's like undercover boss 2.0 in the government. Let's check out the next part.
The crisis that's here and now is why I am in Madison, because we want to leave no field office behind. We are fighting an attrition rate that comes from the mismatch Congress has dealt to us of driving our staffing to a 50-year low, even as baby boomers have driven our...
Yeah, and just real quick, I didn't believe it when the articles came out that said 50-year low. I had lived with ridiculousness in my brain about how they had reached a 25-year low, and then they were snookering into a 30-year low. They are at a 50 effing year low of employment, of having enough employees at the SSA. So when you're asking me like, hey, Attorney Walter Hnot, why is it taking so long? Because they have as many employees working there as they had 50 years ago. That's not like 2000. That's not like 1990s. That's like kind of 1980s-ish area, right? That's ridiculous. Like, the era when, basically the decade when I was being born, that's kind of the area. Well, it was slightly after that, but that's kind of the area we're talking about. And they got 10,000 boomers, a month, 4 million boomers a year, basically retiring. So from a disability standpoint, they don't have enough people. And so it's bad. It's a 50-year low. I just try to set that in your brain, a 50-year low. Here we go.
Active customers to an all-time high. And that's why I was asked to go to Social Security by President Biden. And I'm very proud of what we're starting to turn around.
So in terms of funding of the administration of the program itself, how does that work?
Yeah, the way that works is that there's what they call not even an appropriation, but a limited allowance of expenses. So Congress for years and years allowed Social Security to operate on what was roughly about 1.2% overhead for the benefits, annual benefits we pay out. And we actually had a pretty high level of customer service at that. But then about 10 years ago, Congress stopped even giving us our own budget hearing. We became lumped under a subcommittee called Labor H for Health. It says a lot right then and there that we don't even want an initial in the committee where they supposedly consider our budget. And so every year of level funding meant that Social Security had to reduce its staffing because level funding is not level staffing.
And so just to clear up, what he's saying is that every single year when they do their voting, right, to how much money they're going to actually get, the problem they're running into is that inflation was effing terrible. Now, he can't say that directly because he's on the Democrat side. Biden is the person that brought him in. But the bottom line is, just to be fair, it's the main thing that Republicans use against like the Democrats. Obviously, pipelines for gasoline, for fuel, for oil, for gases, stuff like that. The petrodollar was not treated well over the past 4 years. And as a result of that, it actually was treated well. Biden did very well by Russia when it comes to pipelines over there and Europe as well. But he did not do well for the US, which, to be fair, how much money he's given to other countries, I'm not getting into it. But the bottom line is inflation. The American people do not have a savings anymore. The middle class are the poorest they've ever been in the history of Americans as a percentage of growth as you watch the years go by. Of course, there'll be somebody in the chat will be like, no, of course people have more money now than they did in the past. No, as a comparative, Okay, as an actuarial comparative to where we are at now with the increases versus how few dollars we have at what they're worth now versus back in the day, we are vastly poorer than we were back in the day. And, obviously there's cultural marks on the timeline, right? There used to be one guy could afford an entire family, a car, a TV, a house, right? And if you go look at the how much was a house, how much was a family's earnings versus a house, they were like this for a while until housing did this and this and this, and then it's off the graph, right? It's just totally gone. So the point that I'm getting at here is he's about to touch on a territory that he can't really snooker in on because President Biden put him in. President Biden did a very poor job with the economy, and as a result of that, he's got to be careful with how he words this. So listen carefully about how he actually words this.
Expenses go up by $600 million a year, and you got level funded from what it was last year. That's like $600 million in salaries from places like the Madison field office, Milwaukee field office, the 1,211 field offices all across America, as well as those 24 teleservice centers where our employees answer the calls on the 1-800 number. So that's what I'm waking Congress up to, is the fact that this is a self-inflicted wound. There's no reason that people should be denied the customer service for which they've already paid. It was the same dollars that you and I were paying in from the first job where we ever had Social Security withholding. Those dollars were supposed to be used so that we could access it and have the customer service, the trained representatives, so that we can get our benefits when, God forbid, we become disabled and have to apply for a disability or a child in need of SSI.
All right, now I want to go to one thing because he said this, and this was incredibly important. Some of you might have not caught it. What he was talking about is you have already paid for the customer service that you're receiving when you need the benefits that you're opting into, whether you're disabled and needing them younger or you're retired in 62, 65, 67, or 70. The point is, at a 50-year low, right, a 50-year low of employment status at the SSA, they can't give you proper customer service. They don't have enough people. And all those people that are working there keep quitting because they are maxed out every day. Every day, they're on the phone nonstop, right? Because people are constantly calling in. That's why you have to wait 45 minutes, an hour on the phone. That's why when you go sit there to go ahead and talk to somebody in a lot of places, it's 30 minutes to an hour and a half. So what they're saying is they're not getting enough funding. But there's a bigger problem here too, which is that the government employees don't get paid enough. And as a result of that, people don't want to sign up and work for the SSA. So why is this happening? It's because of the Biden inflation problem. And I mean, some of you will say, wasn't Biden's fault? Just go learn about the petrodollar. I beg you to go learn about the petrodollar. Now, with that said, this guy is more of an old school Democrat. He is way better than Biden. Way better than Harris. Like the Biden-Harris team, you can love him, you can do whatever. But the point is this: he is a much more Clinton-esque version of what a Democrat is, what a traditional. Because I mean, remember, the left now is not what a liberal is. I mean, they left the liberals behind. The liberals are still stuck somewhere a little left of the middle. I mean, I don't even know what I mean? It's like the left is now throw the ball as hard as you can, put a rocket on the back of it, shoot it that way until you hit another country that's on a different continent. That's how far left it's gone. He's not that. So I do prefer this individual. He's also taking a lot of the things that the SSA used to be like, not a problem, too effing bad. That's what the SSA used to be like, not a problem. And he's admitting this entire experience is shit, and they pay a lot of money and they're getting shit. So he's admitting to that, which you would never get from the government usually. Normally what you get from the government is, we'll take a look at it, right? That's normally what you get.
Reaching retirement age.
What's the fix? Let's start with the administration of Social Security. So what's the fix? It used to be, you said 1.2%.
It was 1.2. We need to get back. I was talking to the chairman of one of the committees, and I said, look, Mr. Chairman, whether I'm here for 20 more years or 20 more minutes, you have got to get the Republic back to allowing this agency to operate at the 1.2%. Compared to private insurance companies, get this, Allstate operates at 19% overhead as a ratio of benefits paid annually. Liberty Mutual, Liberty Biberty, operates on 23% overhead. And when Social Security operated well, we operated on 1.2% overhead. Now, this year in the House, in the initial budget considerations, the House recommended cutting us by another $500 million. The Senate in a very bipartisan way, rebuked that by increasing us by $500 million, but really getting us out of this downward slide. The only active proposal out there is President Biden's proposal, which is a $1.3 billion increase. That still doesn't get us back to 1.2%, but it's probably as much as we can ramp up in new training and staffing in the course of 1 year. I mean, we didn't get to this point at.
Did you hear that sales tactic? That was a smart, I mean, he's a great politician. That was a great sales tactic because Biden put him in place. And what he just said there was the House tried to destroy the Social Security Administration. The Senate gave them $500 million more. But Biden said $1.2 billion. And he said, did you notice the political thing there? He said that's about how much money we would need and how much we could handle with hiring that many more people to go ahead and train them and get them to ramp up in that time. Because remember, when you have a company, a lot of you guys don't have companies, you never had a company, but even if you got lots of money, you can't necessarily ramp up people or ramp up or 10x things, right? Unless you have the path, the plan, and the people to make it happen. So what he was saying there is, Biden's thing isn't getting us back to where we need to be, but it's enough money to give us what we could potentially probably handle at the most to ramp up, train people, get the SSA back to where it could be. Very smart politics right there. Not a dumb person, very bright individual.
So it's going to take some steady years of, closing this self-inflicted wound. Much of it is staffing, though. Much of it is staffing. I mean, I encourage you to go through any field office. You'll see that while the office is open, there are a lot fewer people than there were before these staffing reductions happened. Having said that, we're doing a lot of things, even in the face of this growing mismatch of record high customers every day. In fact, this is a historic time that I'm at WORT because this is the highest number of customers we've ever had. We get another 11,000 more customers than we've ever had before every day. So I can tell you tomorrow is going to be another record day. So record high customers, 50-year low in staffing. But nonetheless, we've been able to reduce the hold time on the 1-800 number, which was routinely hour and a half for the last couple of years. We've gotten that down now to 11.3 minutes.
Now, truthfully, I've called the SSA many times over the past couple of weeks. It is getting way better with the phone calls. The wait times at the offices are still shit, though, because a lot of the employees are allowed to stay home and work from home, and therefore you're not having as many people that can actually interact with the reception area. But the phones are definitely getting better. I will say that. Now, with that said, we are transitioning as a society dealing with the government when it comes to the Social Security Administration more as a phone-based existence. So, for example, if we're doing hearings, a lot of hearings are telephonic now. And if we're going to be going ahead and calling the SSA, we want to go to a quick update, we'll do that. And that's because a lot of the time we don't have the stamp method anymore, which is where, I'm going to go to the field office right now and get this thing stamped. There's no point. There's no need. There's no reason to get it stamped. You could just have a fax with a read receipt. You can go ahead and ask your attorney to upload it to the ERE. You could certify return receipt it, to the SSA. So the idea of having it stamped is just not really necessary like it used to be back in the day. So he is focusing the efforts where they need to be, which is on those phone calls.
So, 100 different things that helped us do that. Part of it was business processes. Part of it was reducing unnecessary calls on the front end. And part of it was a new system that we moved to in AWS Connect. You might have seen stories about how when we sometimes make mistakes and overpay beneficiaries, we're required by Congress to recover those benefits. Well, we had this cruel practice of intercepting 100% of Mrs. Kaczynski's monthly benefits if she didn't call us back when we sent her a notice that said, hey, Mrs. Kaczynski, no fault of yours, it was ours, but we need the money back. And so we no longer do that. What they called overpayments, Anderson Cooper ran us over 3 times in the national program on 60 Minutes on that. But the third one...
And they did. 60 Minutes ran the SSA over. And here's the reality with it. The SSA was a goblin in the night. They would give you benefits, and then all of a sudden you get a letter, and boy, your overpayment, boom, they want it back tomorrow. Then you'd have to submit a 632, submit a 561, negotiate a monthly whatever, go through the whole spiel. The bottom line was people who are receiving Social Security benefits cannot afford to pay back right then and there $50,000 in overpayment. And remember, they didn't tell you about these other things and how you could do and what you could do in the sense of what is normally done. They would tell you can always file these documents, but they wouldn't tell you what would normally happen. So a lot of people were having anxiety and panic attacks, ending up in behavioral institutes because the SSA was saying, hey, guess what? We need $50,000 back tomorrow, or else we're going to take your benefits in total. Now it's 10%. They just take 10% away when you don't interact or call them back and things like that. But what's interesting is, think about it. What politician would give an F enough to make it so that the government would be more fair to elderly and disabled people when there's an overpayment, which may or may not have been their fault, the SSAs or the claimants, to begin with? How many politicians would give a literal F? You think the CIA would? You think the FBI would? You think anyone at the DOJ or DOD? You think anybody at Health and Human Services would? I doubt it. This guy is good. I like this guy a lot. So I'm excited about his future. He's doing a good job.
That troubles me the most is that today 30,000 Americans die awaiting their initial disability determinations. They happen in the 50 different state disability offices. Part of my purpose in being here today was also to talk to Governor Evers' office, which I did. This is an anomaly. They're all run by the states, but funded by the federal government. And we've now gone 19 weeks in a row of closing more cases than came in on the front end, but it's a 1.1 million backlog of cases. So that was the crisis.
Yeah, right there. 1.1 million backlog. 1.1 million backlog. They're 50-year low of staff members. It is the most crisis mode the Social Security Administration has ever been in. And the weird thing is, ask yourself this simple little question, won't take you long. How many legacy news stations, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, even Fox News, right? CNN, they're going to hide shit they're going to hide shit left and right. If it hurts their party or any of their MSNBC, same thing. They're going to hide it. They're going to drill a hole, drill down deep, shove that thing in a hole, bury it so it never sees daylight. Fox News, you expect them to be all over this. Well, the agency is, but it's not. The traditional Republicans, which we ironically call Republicans in name only, which are actually the traditional Republicans, they want to end Social Security because they think, well, if you're a blue collar worker, you can just keep working through your 80s. You should love it. There's just with the traditional Republicans, I get angry because it doesn't make sense how somebody who usually has education, work experience, they have capitalism in their bootstraps, could be so completely mentally removed from reality. How the hell do you take a person, granted they don't golf, maybe that doesn't help them. How do you take a person who's a steel worker for their entire life and tell them, you know what, we're going to move Social Security so that your retirement age is going to be early retirement around 66, full retirement maybe around 69, max retirement 72, 73. How do you tell somebody who's been doing heavy welding, electrical, whatever, blue collar labor, that their body is going to continue, or else basically they'll be in a state of poverty? How do you tell them that? And that's the reality, is that they don't care, because that mentality is, well, I can just keep doing my job of typing on a computer, just like all those other blue collar workers are. If you look at Japan and other countries, types of jobs are allowed to retire earlier than other types of jobs. Think about that for a moment. The difference between blue collar and white collar, they actually have age differences on who can retire when, because the blue collar people have to retire earlier. Okay. Although ironically, in some of these countries, women are allowed to retire earlier, although women actually live longer. So the reality is that it's broken. Women should have to retire later if we're going by how long they live. Of course, that's not popular. And this whole thing was designed because men think they're tough, and therefore the women get to retire early in those countries. But the reality is women across pretty much every country, every continent, live longer than men. It's not because the men live in Florida and they play with alligators. It's just because of the way we do labor that usually ends our lives sooner, right? We're doing the physical jobs that are miserable, right? And, women will say, well, I can do any job that the men can do. Yes, you can. But would you choose being a tree surgeon in Alaska? Would you fell trees in Alaska when it's absolutely cold outside? Would you? I don't know. Many of you would not be able to lift the size of the chainsaw needed, although they are coming out with electric ones, and the electric ones are fun. But with that said, all right, what about underwater welding? What about oil rigs? What about any of those types? No, and that's the thing. That's the thing. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to do those jobs, but we do them for the money, because in our society, men got to earn money to get women to love them. Because women don't want to love a broke guy, unless for some reason, I don't really get this, unless they're in the inner city, right? Then for some reason, women love the broke guy. I don't know what's going on with that. And I don't mean it as just a particular item or a particular skin color. I see it across every spectrum. I represent all types of homeless people, all types of individuals. And I will tell you this, that theory of love, where they choose somebody who has nothing, they tap into, and I will tell you this, it's every poor area, the white poor area, the black poor area, the Latino poor area, every area, women absolutely love feeling needed. And some of these guys, man, I don't know how they do it. I have no wife, I have no girlfriend, I work 24/7, so I'm not a good one to ask. I don't know how they do it, but they get them to love them on a deep level, because they make those women feel needed. And they're like, yes, that guy needs me. And then, of course, that guy ironically cheats a lot. I don't know why that happens, but it is what it is. So let's keep rolling through this. Hold on. Let me get this thing going on. Hold on real quick. Get the face ID. We're going to get it. Nope. Hold on. Let me get this thing rolling here. Okay, we're better now. Here we go.
That I was asked to throw myself at. It's a solvable crisis. It's a self-inflicted wound. And we're already, running up what is a downward moving escalator. It is a solvable problem, though. Just as the longer term solvency that we keep seeing the scary headlines about is also a solvable problem.
Can I ask where the funding for the administration comes from?
Yeah, mostly comes from the dollars you and I already put in. So it comes from mostly Social Security Trust Fund dollars, with a portion of it, though, coming from general fund allotments for the 1973 program of supplemental security income. But most of it comes from the same dollars you and I paid in all our lives for our benefits. We didn't have a choice. It wasn't discretionary on our part how much we paid into Social Security. In a strange shift that happened actually under the first President Bush, an OMB director decided to declare the overhead, the customer service dollars, discretionary. And we've been getting short shrift ever since. The longer term fix is really to acknowledge the truth that it comes out of the trust fund dollars that people paid in. And
that's one of the things that is going to piss you guys off. When you find what actually comes out of the trust funds, the extra money that goes in, or how they convert a lot of the money that you pay in into special bonds and then spend it on their little projects, most of you would be livid to find out what types of projects it's spent on. Many of you would lose faith in the Social Security system. He's doing a bold thing here by saying, let's put the cards on the table. Let's educate America. Let's get Americans understanding how this thing works. Because otherwise, and he's right. He's 100% right. He's uploading the truth, serum right here. Otherwise, Americans will lose faith in a system that they did not voluntarily pay for and were required to be stuck with, and then did not receive what they were promised. That's the reality. I think he's right. The only way out of this thing is with the truth, so that people understand what's going on.
Ask, well, what would it do? That's because I was talking to one chairman of appropriations. I said, Mr. Chairman, this is a self-inflicted wound. And if you allowed us to go up to 1.2% and allowed it to all come out of the trust fund, that would not add a single penny to the national debt. And he said, logically, well, what would it do to the trust fund? It would advance the depletion date, currently in August of 2035, to July of 2035. So, Mr. Chairman, why are we doing this? This is silly.
Let's move on to the funding of the benefits for
Great.
Social Security itself. Social Security is seeing the effects of the changing demographics with fewer workers to support retirees.
Okay, remember, this is the point I always make with a lot of my videos, and then people just ignore it because they're like, whatever, don't give a shit. And that's fine. You can not give a shit for as long as you want, but this is the point. He's about to talk about the thing that I talk about all the time, the 2.7 to 1 ratio. How many people are paying in benefits versus how many are receiving benefits? And let me tell you, that number is the complete and total uppercase F for this program. And the reason why is when we run out of enough people to pay for those on benefits, the people on benefits ain't going to get enough benefits to pay their, well, technically a lot of them can't pay their rent right now, but even more so. And it's very scary. Here's what he had to say.
There's a limit on the amount of your earnings that is taxable by Social Security. It's expected to go up marginally in 2025. Do you think it should go up more than the amount that they're currently listing, which is $174,900? Or should the cap be lifted altogether?
Yeah, you know what's going on right now is a flashing red light in my head. I used to be a mayor, I used to be a governor, and it was my job to propose policy. I was confirmed for this position. They drilled into my head, it's Congress and the president's job to propose policy. But I'm an American, so I've read a lot about this. Ran for president once myself. Let me unpack an answer to that question. Social Security cannot go broke, insolvent, or bankrupt in any of the commonly understood ways that we understand those phrases. It is a pay-as-you-go system. But the reason why the big surplus that was built up in the Social Security Trust Fund to cover baby boomers like me, I know you're much younger than me, the reason that surplus is being depleted faster than they had thought in 1982 is that after they made the adjustment for what they thought was a safe runway of 75 years, other changes were put in place on the tax code that exacerbated income inequality in the United States and led to the next 40 years where average earnings really didn't go up much for people, for the vast majority of Americans.
Remember, that was point number one. Well, one of the big things is a lot of women had to receive payments out of this system too, because they started to work more and more and more going through basically the 40s, 50s, 60s, etc. So that kind of wobbled the math on it. The other thing is people started making not enough. You notice how we have all these millennials, all these Gen Zers, they have unbelievable my student loans are still, they're just under, I think, 300,000 right now. And I feel great about that because remember, I was $500,000 deep. I was $500,000 deep in that US Treasury. You know what I mean, with student loans. Because remember, student loans, what the schools can charge, are out of control. You want to know who the greatest gangsters are? I mean, sure, you could say pharmaceutical companies, but student loan, the university provosts, the presidents, the owners of the schools, those are the gangsters. It's not some guy rapping. It's not Eminem. It's not Jay-Z. No, it's pharmaceutical companies and provosts, owners of schools, stuff like that. They are the true American gangsters. And people don't make as much. All these jobs out there, all these, this company, a lot of the big companies, they just bought up all the little companies and all the mid-sized companies. They merged, right? And now they don't have to pay as many people, and they have to pay them as well to keep them because they control the marketplace. They control the capitalism of a vocational choice that people have because they don't really have a choice anymore when it comes to being paid. Not to mention the economy is shit. It hasn't been handled right. So the bottom line is, he's going to talk about why we're up Schitt's Creek.
Went up a whole heck of a lot for the top 6% of Americans. But that 6% only pays into Social Security
the rich.
Up to that cap that you mentioned. Last year was $168,000. And every dollar earned above $168,000, there's no Social Security tax, FICA, taken out of that. So as a practical matter, that means that a person working as a nurse in a hospital in Wisconsin will pay in every 2 weeks for an entire year, whereas Warren Buffett will stop paying anything into Social Security after the first 20 seconds after midnight. It's been a long time since anybody's put in a bill that proposes cutting benefits. And I've probably met now one-on-one with, 70, 80 congresspeople and senators. I've only heard 2 or 3 people say things like we should cut the benefit or raise the retirement age. The active bills are all about asking wealthier people to start paying in at a certain dollar amount. Some senators believe that amount should be every dollar you earn above $400,000. Some other senators have said above $250,000. President Biden has himself suggested a logical conclusion that he would be very open to asking people that make more than $400,000 to pay in. when this election is over and members of Congress are seeing that potential.
Remember, this is crucial. He's talking about his job now. He just said when this election is over. Because remember, if Trump gets in, he's going to fire Commissioner Martin O'Malley because Biden got in and fired Commissioner Saul, who was put in by Trump. So the reality is, if we get Harris, we get shit top-level Democrats, and then we get great Social Security Commissioner Democrats. So like you got amazing Social Security, administration Democrat, and in my opinion, shitty Democrats at the top, highest level executive team. Then if you get Republicans in, you got, whether you like Trump or not, a better in the direction economy, but you don't have that good Social Security Commissioner. You're probably going to get another Saul type who ran it like a business. And man, let me tell you, it began that cycle of people not wanting to work there. There were a lot of things he did really well, but it began the cycle of the road that we're now on with being at a 50-year low of employment. So he's about to talk about a very touchy subject, which is his ability to retain his job going forward.
17% reduction in benefits if they don't act, hitting all of their constituents. The solution set, I believe, is mostly going to be about revenues. How do we get more revenues in to sustain us for the life of the baby boomers before we go to our eternal reward? So those that say we should ask wealthier people to start paying more into Social Security are, I think, on pretty firm footing. And it is precisely because of the huge windfall that wealthier people enjoyed since the last one that Social Security's depletion date has been moved up. And Janine, 80% of Americans believe that's what we should do as well. In a time of great polarization, this is an amazingly popular and widely supported program. And while some of these nuances aren't as well understood as they could be, the American people understand this is a sound program, and it's been there for 89 years, and they want it to be there for their grandkids as well.
Just a brief question about the cap, lifting the cap altogether. Is that an option that anybody is looking at?
I haven't seen that in a bill lately. The two bills that have been most recently introduced, one would do it at $400,000 and up, another's $250,000. I haven't heard many people want to eliminate that cap altogether. Over time, of course, it's adjusted for inflation, as indeed the benefits are as well. So I haven't heard that one. I have heard that every dollar above $400,000 that a person earns should start paying something into Social Security.
How many Americans benefit from Social Security, and who benefits?
All of us, every single one of them. This is a program.
Makes a good point there, because a lot of you guys don't realize, like, everybody that pays into this program, it's the net, the social net. They mean everybody. Even a lot of immigrants get active use of it, which I know is going to piss a lot of people off. But the reality is everybody wants this program to succeed. They just want it to do better, especially with its investments. The funds that you pay in are being used for some kingly purposes, some nefarious purposes. The point is, though, this administration does not properly handle how it's going to spend using those special bonds. Now, you're going to hear some of the arguments that he's going to come up with about why they went this way, why they went that way, etc. You got to understand, we don't have many choices. Some of them are going to hurt in the future.
When the White House first called me and asked me if I'd be willing to lead this agency in these difficult times, the opener was, what agency touches more Americans every single day after the post office and the IRS? Hint, it's headquartered in Baltimore. It's Social Security. So every child born in America, every baby born gets a Social Security number. That social societal promise we make to that child, to their parents, every person that reaches their golden years and applies for the retirement benefits they've earned their whole life. I have sat with people doing those interviews, and this agency touches every soul from cradle to grave. And the people that haven't quit here yet, even with the huge amount of work.
Do you hear that? The people who haven't quit yet at the SSA, even with the huge amount of work, because they're maxed out, right? The max amount of callers, the max amount of people showing up at the reception desk, they are maxed out.
Stay because of that mission to heal the sick, to feed the hungry, to uplift the dignity of every individual. Half of all people over 65 living alone survive and stay out of poverty only because of Social Security. And with the way that some foolishly treated private sector pensions and employer pensions as if they had to be stamped from the face of the republic, that only made Social Security even more important as a lifeline to people. So right now we have 70 million active beneficiaries. And during COVID, this agency didn't miss a beat. Imagine that, being told one day, nobody can come into work anymore, and you better keep the checks cranking out at the right amount to the right person at the right time.
Good point.
This agency was able to do that. So it's 72 million active.
And you wouldn't expect him to say that, because he just bolstered and committed a compliment to Commissioner Saul there, because Commissioner Saul was in there when shit hit the fan, and basically they had to keep producing these checks. And remember what Commissioner Saul did? He went to the IRS and said, you better open your purse strings and pay these Social Security employees more money, because it was never part of their gig to figure out the list of people who have to go ahead and get paid, basically this supplemental check that's coming as a COVID stimulus. So as a result of that, he actually just paid, which is why I think very highly of Commissioner Martin Malley. I think very highly of him. You don't expect him. The things he does are what you'd expect from a leader that has qualities to him himself, that are just exemplary of expectations from somebody that you would want to show other people how to lead, right? You pick a leader that knows how to lead because they show other people how to lead. And that's like, when you see in those movies, or like, when somebody, one king gets mad at somebody that was directly next to a king, and that one king will say, had you not spent enough time in the presence of another king to know how kings should act? This is king material right here. This is king material. He just paid a compliment to the person that, literally kept the SSA going during the whole COVID situation. So that was a very interesting moment there.
Beneficiaries, but really, I walk through the airport differently now. I look at people, I go, yeah, that's one of mine. That's one of ours. But every person has a Social Security number, so in a sense, it touches every American every day. And your earnings. You should go on if you don't already have a myssa.gov account, go on our website, myssa.gov, open your own account, personalize it, get your own number. You're laughing at me. Your technician, who's a fraction of my age, is laughing at me. You're going to need it one day. So you can go on, and you will be amazed at how much data this agency's kept because of earnings. Your ultimate benefit is calculated in part from the 40 quarters, the highest 40 quarters you've earned in your life. So in order to make that calculation, we have to know what you've made, and you become vested, if you will, in this benefit once you reach those 40 quarters.
In the current polarized environment that we find ourselves,
Saucy question
some
here.
people have misinformation about a lot of things, and one of them is Social Security. For example, immigrants getting Social Security. What's your response?
They don't get SSDI. They don't get retirement. They do get SSI. SSI is part of Social Security, but it doesn't use quarters of coverage. So is it a Social Security benefit? Yes. But does it come from the trust funds that you paid in from your FICA taxes? No. That's the reality.
Yeah, that is totally untrue. In fact, I think we put on our website an FAQ or some sort of notice, because this has been going around in the ether. Illegal immigrants, so-called immigrants.
Remember, illegal immigrants are those who haven't signed up and interacted with the government to receive some sort of being allowed to stay here. Now, they've changed the rules. I haven't done the emergency message yet, where they actually changed one of the rules about expediting for those who are trafficked, right, to be able to go ahead and have access to those supplemental security income benefits even faster. Illegal immigrants don't get any benefits. But immigrants, which Biden has fast-tracked the shit out of more than any president in the history of America, more than any president in the history of America has fast-tracked people becoming immigrants. They come in illegally, and he'll sign them up, and then they can potentially get SSI benefits if they meet certain protocols, if they fall into the right things.
People working here out of status cannot, by law, receive any Social Security.
Illegal immigrants who haven't signed up with the government yet.
To say that illegal immigrants are bankrupting Social Security is patently false. It is not true. They cannot earn benefits. However, They do pay in for the rest of us $22 billion a year that they're never, ever going to be able to see a dime of.
But remember, that's mostly immigrants who are older, who pay in and never earn their full 40 quarters of coverage or don't have enough quarters of coverage to achieve basically the SSDI benefits. So yes, the program doesn't benefit some immigrants, but it's not a massive amount of immigrants compared to how many are going to go on to SSI. So, keep in mind, even though they're not getting their traditional retirement SSDI, they do get SSI. But do they get to have SSI forever? Well, sometimes, yeah, because some of them go on the 7-year program, get the 2-year up option, and then later in life, they have to go into SSI as an elderly, person who basically doesn't have full naturalization status. So it's a little bit more complicated than what he's saying, but he's making a broad swipe statement of illegal immigrants can't get any Social Security benefits. That's true. But Biden churns that bucket real fast to turn them into immigrants from illegal immigrants. And the moment they go into that, there's certain categories that can get supplemental security income, which is your poverty, old age, disability, and immigration, entrants, refugees, asylum seekers that can get that check.
Back to them in benefits, and they get zero credit for it. So, no, illegal immigrants are not receiving any Social Security.
Until they become a legal immigrant.
I would like to talk about Social Security as a pay-as-you-go system, because there are very few headlines that get quite as many frightened eyeballs clicking on those articles as those that say Social Security about to go insolvent, about to go bankrupt, about to be struck by a meteor. The truth is, Social Security can't go bankrupt because the benefits that are paid out this year.
Okay, so real quick, it can technically in a form go bankrupt if people vote for the program to change and become something else, which is my big problem with this whole thing. Because if people, feel that the Social Security Administration isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing and the benefits aren't being used properly, they could vote that out and vote another thing in, which would bankrupt the system that existed because that would pull the funds away. But he's right. And when he's saying it can never truly go bankrupt because people are always paying into it, but it can become shittier than it already is right now because it can pay in less and less than it actually promises to pay. So instead of you getting 100%, you could be getting 90%, 80%, 70%, 60%, 50% of what you're supposed to be getting.
It's not like we go get them out of some chest that was locked up 40 years ago. It's a pay-as-you-go system. So long as Americans are working and paying into Social Security, we have the ability to pay out the benefits. It is true, however, that the large surplus that we built up since 1982 as a republic, we built that up knowing that demographic of the baby boomers was coming. And so a large surplus reserve was built up. We draw a little bit out of it every year to cover the difference between what active working people pay in and what the beneficiaries receive. Last year, roughly, we paid out $1.37 trillion in benefits, and
a lot of money.
We brought in $1.35 trillion in payments into the system. So how did we cover that delta between 1.35 and 1.37?
The
we
loss.
drew down from the trust fund. That's why we created it. But it is true that
remember, the trust funds are just where the extra money goes when there's more money available than what needs to be paid out. So the reality with that whole thing is that we no longer are in the green, meaning that we pay in money each year and it pays for more than what we actually need for Social Security. Now we're in the red because we don't have enough people working and paying into the system, and we have to use what's in those trust funds to run it and actually pay people what they should be getting paid, which means we are eroding the trust funds. And when they run out 2020, 2032, 2033, 2034, 2035, whatever, then people will get, 80% of the benefits, 85% of the benefits, somewhere around there, could be even less. But that's what they mean. The trust funds are not the end of this program. It just means you won't get all of the monthly check that you're used to. You get, 22, 23% reduction, could be 25% reduction. You could get 75% of the check that you normally get when it actually runs out. And they're running out. And the reason why, and I'm just going to be real straight with you here, because I don't know if he's going to go into it. The reason why this is going to shit is because you have people like me having to work way more hours to make money that's not worth that much. And it's not as much money as it used to be. So the reality is that you have people like me constantly trying to make enough money to afford a decent lifestyle. And that creates an insecurity in me and always working because I'm not making enough to create a basic lifestyle to help pay for a relationship. And then there's that insecurity of not being able to afford somebody else, which means that me as a territorial guy who says that woman's going to be mine, right? That one's mine. I look at this, I'm like, well, shit, how am I going to be able to afford her and keep her happy and keep her around and be territorial and demand that she just be mine if I don't make as much, have as much, and I'm constantly paying student loans and taxes are ridiculous and the dollar's devaluing and shit. So the point is, the real problem here is that younger men are not having kids with younger women to create the future workforce. And that's mostly an economy problem mixed together with a mental limitation issue as a result of not being able to have and be what prior generations did. And then, of course, boomers will be, well, why don't you work hard? I have 3 fucking jobs, bro. If you're a boomer and you're saying that, I have 3 fucking jobs. So just think a little bit. The noodle, use it, crank it up, get it rolling. The light bulb, it's dim, get it going. So the point is, you have to understand millennials are working nonstop. But which group sold all of our manufacturing overseas? Which group was the last group to really earn more than every prior generation, and then every generation thereafter gets effed? Just let that marinate like a beautiful Italian meal that you can afford that we can't. Just let that simmer and settle for that moment, okay?
Trust fund is being drawn down sooner than we thought, and fewer dollars are coming in than they thought in 1982 because of the way subsequent changes to the tax code concentrated more and more wealth in the hands of the top 6% of American earners, thereby taking it out of the bracket that Social Security tax applied to.
I hear Social Security referred to as an entitlement. And there's something about the word entitlement that makes me think that I don't deserve it.
I think of it as an earned benefit because you earn the benefit. I guess entitlement took on a pejorative term more lately, but I generally talk about it as an earned benefit.
Remember, SSDI, retirement, DACs, well, I mean, that's a given from a prior earned benefit. SSI is not an earned benefit. I mean, other than being an American or an entrant, an individual that's an immigrant, right? A refugee, asylum seeker, or somebody over 65 that's super poor. SSI is, to some degree, it is an entitlement. It is a welfare program. It's something passed by Nixon. But all the other ones are pay to play. Your ass paid FICA taxes, and you paid to play to be able to get onto that retirement or that disability. You paid to play. And then some of those, the Title II benefits, other people get to knock into. Spouses, ex-spouses, kids under 18, all that kinds of stuff. Kids that are over 18, between 18 and 22, that prove they're disabled, that get onto that benefit the rest of their life. You know what I mean? So there are entitlements, but it's either SSI people, old people that are poor, disabled people that are poor, or immigrants, or basically it's somebody who got to tap into a parent, right, or a spouse's paid in Title II benefits.
You paid for it. You worked all those years. You paid into the system, and the system is now there for you. So I prefer to think of it as an earned benefit, even the disability aspect of it. That's insurance, disability insurance. Signed into law, by the way, by Dwight Eisenhower. I think it's best understood as an earned benefit.
Yesterday, the Wisconsin Alliance for Retired Americans, American Federation of Government Employees Council 220, rallied for Social Security to be protected, modernized, and expanded. They would like to know, what do you think of the idea that some people have of privatizing Social Security?
Remember, this is his pre-presidential question. This is a tough question a president would get. This is a question that a group asked that she is asking him as his ramp up to being a potential future presidential candidate.
I would not be in favor of privatizing Social Security. And the reason for that is this. Social Security works. Social Security has worked for 89 years. Social Security is an elegantly simple program that make sure that in the complexities of life, no individual is left behind, especially in their golden years. There's a nuance to that about sometimes when people talk about privatizing Social Security, Janine, what they're talking about is investing Social Security trust funds on the stock market in order to get a better rate of return than we currently get from.
Now, remember, he's talking about what most Republicans push for, which is privatizing it, because if you were to pay in basically benefits into the stock market, or if somebody were to take their benefits and put into the stock market, if shit goes well, they might have 3 million, 4 million, 5 million at the end of the day by putting all that money into the stock market. Instead, with Social Security land, they're getting hundreds of thousands, not millions, like the traditional yada yada. So some of them get, the higher amounts. But the point is, you'd make a lot more money out of the stock market if the stock market did well by you. I know a lot of Bitcoin people, Bitcoin was doing great. They lost everything. If Bitcoin goes well by you, right? But what he's about to explain is some of the problems and some of the historical problems. I'm assuming, I haven't actually listened to the whole thing yet. I'm assuming he's going to talk about historical problems that they had when they looked at investing all this money in. One of the big things that they argued back in the day, and it's one of the things that I always think about, is that they said if you took all that Social Security money, that the big billions and now trillions, right, and you put it into different things, you could market manipulate better than most, billion-dollar trust funds or fund packages that are being managed by particular individuals. So the point here is, if you have all that Social Security money and you want to throw this much into Home Depot, this much into Walmart, this much into this much into that, you can manipulate the market to make a ton of money. Is it ethical for the government in charge of overseeing, moderating, that kind of stuff, to manipulate the market like that? Although, to be fair, our big ass corporations are not doing so well against the big ass corporations overseas, which are in direct competition with them. So that's something to think about here. So remember, there's more than just, what I mean? But again, another point, well, let me do his thing and then I'll go into it. Here you go.
Investing in U.S. bonds. It is a relatively conservative investment we make, intentionally so. And there were some back in 1982. I wasn't around in 1982, but I was taught that in 1982, Congress considered this. And many in Congress believed that given the size of Social Security and the size of the trust fund, it wouldn't be right to have that sort of influence in the market from government to pick winners and losers.
There you go.
And it was the arguments against it at the time mostly came from Republican senators and congresspeople, not the Democrats.
Sure.
Since that time, we saw how Wall Street crashed. To those that say, why can't our government be run more like a business? I answer, you mean like Bear Stearns? What business do you want it to be run like? This agency has strived through the years to get the right amount to the right person at the right time, did so on an overhead of just 1.2% when we did it well, which is better than any private insurance company. So I don't believe it should be privatized. We do this well as Americans, and people deserve their customer service and they deserve the benefits they've earned.
Social Security is a big pot of money.
Okay, so just to clear up, he hit the point that they used back in the day. Here's the thing. I don't think we're in a position where we get to sit on our hands anymore. Think about it. Back in the day, there was enough money. Yeah, the 80s had the problems. Yeah, they found a fix to it. They kind of effed over a lot of the retired people by taxing their benefits. It's a double tax. But we are not in the position anymore, because it's way bigger problem now than it was back then, to not look into having government people invest this money into the private market, because the private market can bring back many, many times the ROI, return on investment, that these government bonds can. But the thing is this, the government doesn't like the idea of taking this money and investing it into the private marketplace, because the government would rather take the money, convert it into a special bond, and then use the money for government purposes. You see the problem there? You see like the whole shit show of hey, wait a minute. Are they really just stealing the money and then paying it back down the line with a little bit more interest, and then claiming that the whole system doesn't work because the interest they pay on top isn't enough to cover everybody? Yes, that is the problem. That is the clusterfuckery that they literally give to us. They act like we're the problem. No. If they invested the money well, there would be no problem. It's the return on those special bonds, that shit. as a comparison to giving us what we should actually have. So just keep that in mind.
I imagine that it's tempting for a lot of people to look at that as something that they might want to work with.
I think Franklin Roosevelt said at the time that once those dollars are in the Social Security Trust Fund, no politician will be able to take it. And that's turned out to be true for 89 years. It's a bit of a third.
Well, no politician takes them, but they use them to fund government stuff by creating special bonds. So it's, you know what I mean? There's a little of that in there,
So one of the other myths that goes around is, well, we'd have more money in the Social Security Trust Fund if those politicians behind our back weren't taking our money and putting it into other things. That's not what's happened. Politicians have not taken the trust fund dollars, nor do illegal immigrants receive any benefits.
Right. But notice how he didn't include the special bonds there. There's a little slippery. Now, remember, he's got to play the game. You know what I mean? You ever watch movie stars? And somebody asks them a question and they just slither right through a little bit. You know what I mean? He's got to play the game. That's called politics. He's got to play the game. Illegal immigrants don't get Social Security benefits. But immigrants that sign up with the federal government, they go through one of those little, you know what I mean? They do get supplemental security income if they fall into one of the categories. So, you know what I mean? You got to understand. There's a little bit of politics going on right here. And he's doing it well. He's got that presidential capacity to him.
Neither of those things is true. What is true is that it would require quite a super majority of both houses of Congress to ever touch that sacrosanct Social Security Trust Fund, which is why whenever they've come up on a deadline, they have always in the past found a way to make the necessary adjustments so it's safe and sound for the next 75, 50 years.
What do you recommend for regular people to do to keep informed and to pressure their politicians about Social Security?
Yeah, I'm allowed to encourage people to educate.
Did you catch that? I'm allowed to. Because remember, these politicians, congressional people, senators, House reps, president, they can say, we should pass this. But heads of agencies, they're not really supposed to be doing that. I'm allowed to say, you caught that? All right, here we go.
Make their members of Congress more aware. I, of course, talk to members about the need to restore our funding. But in terms of making their members of Congress more aware, I would encourage people to, if you check out our website, which is ssa.gov, we probably have, with a greater degree of openness, transparency, and timeliness, right down to the 1,211 field offices across America, we're able to tell people how we do what we do, whether we're doing it on time, whether we're doing it better in one place than another. The message, I think, to Congress people is that we were given, as a people, no choice about paying for both our benefits and our customer service. And while we appreciate the fact that you haven't yet cut our benefits, we'd really like you to restore our customer service. I think most members of Congress that I've talked to, anyway, have been somewhat surprised that those dollars come from the same dollars that people have paid in their whole life, namely the dollars for the customer service, the administrative overhead.
Thank you so much for coming and talking to us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for caring.
Okay, I want to go into something real quick. How do you go ahead?
It's a Monday.
Hold on. We got a
downtown
commercial. We got a commercial. Hold on. Let me get rid of it. Hold on. Hold on. All right, there we go. So here's the deal. Here's my thing. You want to go ahead and have Congress care. If you want Congress to care, if you want Congress to fix it, if you want Congress to put money into fixing Social Security, you must put somebody in who will push through what are called trigger bills. Trigger bills are bills where if the House or Senate doesn't do something, if they don't reduce inflation to a certain point, they don't fix Social Security within a certain time, they don't do this, they don't do that, then they are no longer eligible for re-election. We need trigger bills. We need to treat our politicians like the pieces of poo that they have proven themselves to be, who enjoy golfing way too much. First of all, again, for all the golfers out there, I love you dearly, but if you got to swing a stick at a ball and hope the ball goes in a hole, I get it. It's great exercise, whatever, but it ain't, you know what I mean? It's not a good look for people that are starving. It's just not a good look, okay? There's no reason why we cannot make politicians have to meet certain goals. We can vote in trigger bills that if they don't get something done, their ass is out. That is the solution. That's the same solution that we have in what's called the private sector. You see, in the private sector, when somebody doesn't meet the goals that they're supposed to, they get kicked out. Now, in the public government sector, the way it works is that you tell them they should do better next year. And you tell them they better do better next year. And the next year after that, they should do better next year again. Yeah, a little bit better. No, private sector, you're fired. You're fired. That's it. No schmoozy here, no schmoozy. You're fired. You have to get these politicians, House reps, senators, President of the United States, to fear trigger bills. And I'm talking about a trigger bill that could literally kick a president out. That's the level of it better be done within so many days kind of letter, kind of bill, kind of law that we need. So anyways, I'll catch you at the next video shortly. The SSA was audited by a special group. We're going to go through the results so you understand specifically what happened. Attorney Walter Hnot, I know some of you enjoy these videos. Some of you are just absolutely amazing people. And then there's that 1 little percent that just learns and finds a way to piss me off beyond belief, but that's okay. Please remember to like. Please remember to subscribe. Become a member if you like. Please head over to Google. Type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida. Throw up some star reviews there. Some beautiful stars onto the review page. Please remember, I go live on Mondays and Thursdays, although I've been not doing it on Mondays because I usually fall asleep because I'm overworked on Mondays. But we will be going live tonight to answer questions for people who want to. We're going to do one more video. We're going to be quick with it, and then we're going to go straight into the live video. I will catch you all a little bit later, and please remember to be kind to yourself, and I will see you soon at the next video. Oh, Mondays and Thursdays I'll go live. If you want to do a private session, private hour, mini contract is below. I'll catch you soon at the next video. Give me about 5-10 minutes to grab a drink, and we will go from there. Thank you so much. All right, bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.